Hello, my name is Ashley Puckett. I'm a singer-songwriter from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Welcome to the El Paso Creator Show. We're going to talk a lot about music, myself, how I got started, and where we plan to go next.
Awesome, Ashley. It's a pleasure to meet you. It's really cool how you're over there in Pittsburgh. I'm here in El Paso. And so it's so awesome to just connect with different artists, different creatives from like around the world, different cities, different states through something like this, through Zoom. So it's awesome. And I just saw you have like, is that a parakeet or something, like a bird? I just looked on the side and I saw it move and I was like, whoa, what is that?
Yeah, so when I was getting ready, before I started talking to you, he came across my party in here, but he's an eclectic parrot. His name's Captain Morgan.
Okay. Okay, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, just to give myself a quick introduction. Hey guys, my name is Isaac Hernandez. I'm the host of the El Paso Creators Podcast Show. And today we have Ashley Puckett here from Pittsburgh, right?
yes.
Pittsburgh, awesome. And Ashley, just for people who don't really know who you are or what you do, just give us like a quick 2 to 3 minute spiel of who you are and what is it that you do?
Of course. So I sing and write music, more in the country genre. So a little bit more modern, traditional country. I've been singing since I was about 5 years old. My first ever song was You Were Mine from the Dixie Chicks, and I still perform that song today. After our release in 2020, we put out our album Never Say Never. And it was a really cool project that we put together. My life has made a lot of twists and turns in music, either becoming a huge part of my life and sometimes just a very tiny part of my life. So since 2020, I was able to kind of set the stage for where I wanted to go moving forward. Since then, we've had some really good success. In the end of 2019, before the album dropped, we put out our first single, which was Medicine, and we made some airways there, and we had a mention in Billboard magazine, which was super cool for the women of music. And then from there, we had a #1 single the next year called Bulletproof. That one was #1 on the AM/FM New Music Weekly charts. So that was a really cool time for me to get motivated and really look ahead. And right now, the current single is Live Like You Love, and that's doing really well for us too. And hopefully very, very soon we have some new stuff. I don't want to spoil it, but some cool stuff coming your way. A lot more personal than maybe has been done before. But that's me. Music's pretty much the biggest part of my life, what keeps me grounded. And I always like to say I'm a huge thinker, and it's a lot easier for me to say the things on my mind through music. So it's always been a huge part of me.
Absolutely. And is music something like from a young age that you've always wanted to do, or was it like something else that got you into music? How did you first get into like wanting to do music?
It was always something I wanted to do. I remember, I don't know if it was first grade, it might have been sooner than that. We had those time capsule days, and I remember drawing these pictures, and I wanted to be one of the Dixie Chicks. So from a very, very young age, I knew that music was going to be where I ended up. So I consider myself lucky, I guess.
And growing up, like, because we always have a lot of artists, creatives who they always come on and they're, sometimes they, when they pursue like an art, like any type of art form, they lack that support, like people always like telling them off the bat that they can't do it, all that negative stuff. Did you ever have that, or did you have the support system growing up and like pursuing music full time, things like that?
Yeah, honestly, I am one of the lucky ones. You're right. A lot of people, probably the majority of artists in any art form, like you mentioned, probably get a lot of, hey, this is going to be too tough. Make sure you have a backup plan. I mean, I've heard it all, but toward me, I've had nothing but people standing behind me. And, that's one thing I always tell artists from early on. You have to have people that are convincing you to do what you want to do and standing beside you, because in the end, it is very tough business. It's a lot of work. You put in a lot of time, and there's a lot of setbacks. But I've been very thankful to have really, I don't think I've had anybody try to steer me wrong, to be honest with you.
And kind of, so like, what would you say, I guess, is like the biggest thing when like any startup, any musician, any songwriter, singer, like what would you say is like the key thing for them to like focus on pursuing music, but also in a mentally, like what to prepare for mentally when like going into music? 'Cause a lot of people, they do shows and sometimes they don't have the that crowd that they wanted to go, or their expectations, they didn't meet their expectations. What is that one thing for you that like when you first got into music, you were like, this is something that I gotta focus on a little bit more, and something that like a learning curve for you that you just picked up right away? You're like, this is how it's gonna be, and this is what I should prepare for going into music, things like that.
I'd say a couple things. One is just being prepared. So, obviously, the more time you have to dedicate to, making your live performances worthwhile for your audience to really bring them in and not just be sitting there, just singing a song. You want to make sure that you're involving the audience. But I have learned, as far as the content that you're giving out right now, everything's online. And I think for, moving forward, that's how it's going to be. So social media, Spotify, YouTube, you name it, that's where everybody's connecting right now with music. And that's kind of how I foresee it really for forever. So you want to make sure your content's good. I used to put out some recordings of just me sitting on my couch and playing my guitar, but as far as content that people really want to listen to, it's worth spending the time in the studio, putting together some really nice projects to get your music heard and get it out there, because it's going to take you a lot further from the
Yeah.
start. Obviously, your own material is going to make a lot more success for you also, instead of just covers. So if you are a songwriter, don't hide behind that,
Absolutely.
try to make that part of who you are as an artist and share that early on. And those are some of the big things I've learned.
And how important do you think it is to, like, when you're first getting started? Because I've seen that you also done, like, when you first got started, you did a lot of open mics, you went to like a lot of like shows, and you performed a lot. How important do you think that is? And some people, they also want to be musicians, but I always think it's kind of weird how it's like they want to be musicians, but they're also very too shy to get themselves on stage, or they get stage fright. How did you deal with that? Or did you ever have that when you did your first performances?
Yeah, honestly, I still get it sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know that I think if you have it, I don't know that you ever fully get rid of it. You just get more comfortable dealing with it. It depends sometimes with the crowd, how my mindset is going in. Sometimes I handle it a lot better than other times. I think it's just something I got used to. I think everyone gets it, whether they talk about it or not, a little bit.
Yeah.
So for especially being a vocalist and not necessarily, just playing guitar or something. One thing for me is lyrics. And I always joke, but it's not really a joke. I have the most horrible memory.
Yeah.
And always one of my fears is messing something up. And I've done it. And there's probably a lot of artists that have, but I just kind of laugh it off, move on. So mistakes are another thing if you make little things up there. And I think it's just a matter of how you learn to deal with it.
And what is your, because you mentioned lyrics, so like, how do you write your lyrics? Is there a reason behind like the way you write your lyrics? What is your music about? How do you describe the type of music or like lyrics that you create?
Yeah, so I like a little bit more traditional country, not so much the new pop country. That's not exactly where my writing style is. As far as a listener, I listen to a wide variety of stuff, but when it comes to writing, it's more traditional. It's always something that I'm either going through, I've been through, or I knew somebody going through or seen. I'm one of the people that like to write about real life, real stories. I love romance, so I always joke that if I could write an entire album of ballads and love stories, that would be my perfect project. But a lot of it's just like life and love.
And I asked a lot of like painting artists or mural artists the same question, is like, how do you know when like your piece is finished, like, or your lyrics is finished, or your artwork is finished? Like, do you ever like get that feeling of like, okay, like, I have it down, or you always want to keep adding a little bit more to it? Like, how do you know when your artwork is kind of finished in a way?
That's a good question. And it's actually a really weird timing to have that question. So anybody who knows kind of my writing style in the last few years, I have had writer's block for a long time. And I've had many songs that I've written and just haven't felt that same feeling. Yeah, I'm done. This is great. Let's move on to the next one, or let's record it. Let's do something. Earlier this month, I finished a new song, and it really only took 2.5 days. And I'm not really sure what makes me think that a song is finished. It's just something more that I feel. And when I finally got to the end of the lyrics, I said, no, this is it. This is the next song. This is great. I'm finished. Then I went through the, holy crap, I just wrote a song and I haven't done this in years. And
Yeah.
but if it's more of a feeling, I think it's what I'm trying to say. It's more of a, I think I said everything that is on my mind that I was trying to portray, and it sounds good to me. And I think I'm ready for people to hear it. So
Well,
if I can pass all those mental check marks, I think we're good.
absolutely. And how do you deal with that? Like you mentioned the writer's block. Like, how did you deal with it? Like, because I've seen people like they started a project and they take like maybe even like the max 2 years until like they go back onto that same project. So it's like, how do you deal with writer's block? How do you go about the process of like from starting to making music to like just finishing it? Or if you do hit that writing's block, like how do you deal with that to kind of get yourself remotivated into that project?
So it is weird going through it, especially that was the longest I've ever had that happen. I mean, it would happen to me for months and then I'd get right back into the swing of things before. But being that it was for so long, one thing, my writing style, it's not that I can just sit down and write a song start to finish. It's I'm either driving in the car or, I'm out somewhere doing something or I see something happen and I get this melody or these set of lyrics in my head, and I'm pulling out my phone with my phone memos, trying to record something really quick, usually discreetly because I'm in the middle of something.
And it's
And
crazy because I see like a lot of people's like phones and they have like memos and like notes and notes and notes, like crazy, you know?
so, like, I try not to, even during those periods of, I know in the back of my mind, or at least I did in those periods, that all right, I'm probably never going to finish this song, but I have to write this down because I knew I would always come back to it. And that's how I tried to tackle the writer's block because I didn't want to give up just because for whatever reason I couldn't piece it all together. So I would still write down anything that came to mind. I have a couple songs that are really missing a bridge and maybe an ending. It's just
Mhm.
I haven't come to grasp with, it's perfect now. So I do keep all that. I think the only thing motivating to me was I know I write songs, and for whatever reason, this one just isn't done and it's not the right time to be done.
Right.
So, and I set it aside, and that seems to work for me.
Mhm.
And when I wrote this last one, it was the same kind of start. It was all right, let's just put a voice memo together. Actually, I was in a big crowd, so I pulled out my notepad and I was actually just typing like a text message.
Yeah.
And then, so, and again, same thought process like, hey, I don't know when this will be done, but this has to be, written down just so I have it. And then I just couldn't stop singing it. I just had ideas flowing. And so I just try to keep moving forward
Mhm.
with it. I just, that was the easiest way for me, just knowing, I'll finish it at some point when it's
Yeah.
time.
I guess the more interesting question would be, I guess for like the whole process of it, what is the most challenging part for you? Like throughout the whole process, is it like the ideas or is it the songwriting itself, or what's the most challenging part for you throughout the whole process?
I think it varies by song, but honestly, I think it's just the perfectionist in me, just trying to say this is ready or this
Yeah.
is done. I also think too much in a lot of the songs. The one I just written was very simple, but some of them I try to make, some kind of crazy stuff happen. I'm always
Yeah.
looking for, those big blow up bridges or like a really good ending. And sometimes certain songs don't need all that. And I think I just spend too much time before I say, no, you know what, this is probably best without that or this. And that's probably what holds me back from finishing songs the most.
Mhm. And I really like asking this question. I think I'm gonna throw it in right here. Is when you first got started, and I think this is a very important question for anybody who wants to go into being like a music writer or a musician, things like that. Is what resources did you really have when you first got started? A lot of people want the most expensive equipment, expensive mics, things like that. Did you have any of that, or how did you get started, like with equipment wise and like pursuing music, and even people that you knew, like your network and things like that?
No, that's a very good question. So years ago, I started kind of focusing on this right out of high school, or technically at the end of high school. And at the time, it was just me and my guitar. It's the only equipment I really had. I did have a guy I was in the band with that we played together, just an acoustic duo for a little while. He had some equipment, so we kind of started off with his stuff. He taught guitar, and so he had a little bit more resources and opportunity than I did. After that, years kind of went by, and that's all it really was. Anything I did was, open mic nights and all that stuff. I took myself and my guitar, and, and that was it. Um, After a friend of mine had introduced me many years later to my producer, my sound engineer, Bryan and Doug at the studio. I did our recording at Tonic Studios right here in Pittsburgh. And, they were the ones that were able to network and hook up all the musicians and background vocalists and really everything I needed with the equipment. So again, it was kind of always just me. My little home studio room, I call it, where I do most of my practices. It's very simple, just me, my guitar, um, a couple nice speakers, a couple microphones. So nothing crazy, just what gets me by. I know a lot of people have fancy home studios that look like the real deal. And I never got into that. Maybe one day soon. That would be nice. But when I do track projects and stuff, I like having the full network of, the team and the guys that really know what they're doing to handle that part. So nothing ever came into my mind saying I need to spend the money on this or that. Really just the basics to keep me going.
And then I agree with that completely, because you don't really need those big fancy type of room or equipment. I mean, you've done this all not having that, and you've hit #1 charts and things like that. So it's not, I always say it's not about like kind of what you have as like tools and stuff. It's what you know and how you really use them. I think that's the most important part. And I always tell a lot of musicians that, because they also think it's, how was it for you when you first entered like your first studio and everything? Like, was it very intimidating for you? Was it something scary for you to do? How did you face kind of the scary challenges that you had going into stuff that was completely new to you?
It was, to be honest with you, I was really nervous. So I didn't know these guys from anywhere. And the meeting went great when we all decided that we all thought we could work well together, and we decided to move forward with the project. It took a couple months to really settle in and start feeling more comfortable. I mean, it took us over a year to put that whole project together, all 13 tracks. And eventually as we warmed up to each other, I was able to kind of put in my opinions and be a little bit more vocal with, what I thought or what I saw a song turning into and different ideas. I know tracking the vocals too. I don't know what it was, but just being in the room by yourself, it's a lot different. Standing up or sitting down when I'm used to doing. And they did some really cool things with lighting and trying to make the space really cool. One thing I learned though, going through all that is, I think the nervousness went away just as I felt more comfortable with them, which is probably absolutely normal to anybody starting something new for the first time. Little things like when I perform at home, I have no shoes on. So I'm going in there trying to look all perfect and pretty. And I have these big heels on. And so I think when you're trying to do as a vocalist, and maybe even as musicians, but when you're trying to do certain things that you're used to, if you have a special candle, or if you have something, that you're used to seeing next to you, or it's supposed to taking your shoes off, all those little crazy things, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. I think the more comfortable you are, the better you're going to do. And it took us probably 6 tracks before, I started feeling more comfortable. And then with that too, you're saving money, you're spending less time in the studio because, you're sounding better off right off the bat.
Absolutely.
You have to go through something, 37 times, you can do 5 takes on something. And so it was intimidating, but it was all worth it. I think you have to go through and feel some of those certain things.
Take a lot of those chances and everything, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The end,
Well, I really like how you mentioned, like having to do it takes like 37 times and all that, because a lot of people always like, they're always like after the first or second or third, they're just like, you know what, this isn't meant for me. Maybe I'm not meant to be a musician. But then you get through those and you're like, hey, I'm actually pretty good. Or you find your own unique style. Did you ever like have that moment as well where you're like, oh man, I feel like I should maybe quit, or maybe I shouldn't do this, but then you kept going and you're kind of glad that you kept going?
Oh yeah, I had some breakdown moments in the studio. We had a couple songs that I'm just like, we cut a couple songs too. It's just this song isn't working. It's just not matching my voice. It's not matching my tone. It's just, there's something not fitting right about it. I had moments of time, there's a song on there. It's a little bit more touching. It's, I Will Remember You. And I remember being in the studio doing that song. And I was going through some stuff at the time. Probably that day wasn't the right day to work on that specific song. And all of a sudden, we're probably on take 15, 16.
Yeah.
And I remember my producer, this just isn't working. This isn't working. Let's just move on to another song. And there was a lot of those different moments. And again, looking back, I think that's normal.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
uh, Same goes with some of the more high energy songs. If you're coming in there tired or you're not quite ready in the mood to, just be going crazy and having fun, it's really hard to portray that. So there's a lot of that too, even your mood that goes into it. And a lot of that, stuff I would not have thought about until I was, in that moment.
Absolutely. And I think here's a question that I feel like a lot of artists would also kind of benefit from. And for somebody who's experienced like you is what are maybe some of the mistakes that you hit off early on that you learned from and that you kind of also are kind of glad that you took those you had those mistakes because it did teach you something.
I think a lot was with just personally my tone and who I was as a singer. We go in the studio and I have, certain inflections and things that kind of make me unique. But being that until we started working on a personal project, it was really something that I was either singing my covers from Miranda Lambert or I was singing, something from Carrie Underwood or Martina McBride. So one thing I learned early on was you have to shape yourself as yourself, and we had to find out kind of what made me unique as an artist, not just sounding like everybody else, which was kind of cool because it didn't really help my writing style. But when I went back to look at the style of how I write, I think I somehow found a little bit more of who I was as a singer also. And working with the guys in the studio kind of brought that out of me. So that's one big thing. Everyone always says, well, what makes you so different than everybody else? And that's what it is. It's just how you're portraying your songs and how you're singing something as opposed to somebody else. If you're not coming out of the gate doing something that you're passionate about and singing lyrics that an audience can tell you're moved by, then you're really just singing a song. So
And
that was a big one.
and how do you perceive that? Like, because a lot of people go into this trying to be the next someone. I'm trying to be the next Beyonce, trying to be this and that. How do you perceive trying to be the next somebody rather than like just being the unique you and sticking true to you? Because a lot of people, they hit it off, doing something, and then they see that somebody else is doing this and they want to hop on that train. But how important do you think it is to stay true to yourself, especially in this industry?
It's probably the most important thing to me because, you can have a good voice. There are so many people in Nashville, around the world, that really deserve a shot. They really deserve, an opportunity to record, to have those big record deals. There's so much talent. Even in the Pittsburgh area, there is just so much good talent with all kinds of genres. And I think knowing that too has helped me along the way because I know there's just so many deserving people out there. And whether I think I'm one that deserves a shot, there's millions of other ones just like me. So the way I go into it is, I might as well just go be myself, go make myself happy, share the music to the people that want to connect with me.
Mm.
And throughout that, if I find the right person or if I find the right opportunity that I somehow am able to share my music with,
Yeah.
millions more people, through a nice big record deal or something, then, great, my dreams are coming true. But until then, just being another Beyonce or being in my genre, another Carrie Underwood or something, they don't want Carrie Underwood again. She's beautiful and perfect. They don't need another one. They need somebody to be themselves. That's why she's where she is. So if people look at it the right way, they'll realize that, the music industry is looking for the next unique person. They're not looking for a stunt double,
Absolutely. And I guess this kind of ties into that question I asked you before, but what was like those tough decisions that like you really went through where you maybe had to take like some type of sacrifice or something that, was kind of like at the peak of you just like maybe not wanting to go through with it, but then you did, and then you're glad because something big came out of that. Maybe one of your biggest shows or one of your hit records or something like that came out of that. Like, what was that one thing that you really had to sacrifice, but you're kind of glad that you took that sacrifice?
I think a couple things in life. I know, years ago, there was a time when I really wasn't putting myself into music. I wasn't in a good spot. I didn't have the right people around me, and I didn't have that push to do what I love to do. So it kind of got pushed on the back burner for a little while, and making some life changes and, taking some people out of my life at the time. I think that was a huge behind the scenes deciding factor of me being here today and accomplishing everything I have since then. Also in the studio too, there was a lot of stuff that we went through just with the timing, the money, and all the, again, behind the scenes stuff that people don't really talk about or see. And there was a couple times that I thought we were going to cut the whole project short, maybe stop halfway through and, just try to piece together what we already had and use it, which I think would have been a huge setback. So I'm glad we, kind of put our differences aside and kind of figured out a way to move forward with it. But those are the two big ones that kind of stand out. And it's kind of vague, but two of the big moments that I'm looking back on that, could have turned everything completely different than where we are now.
And is there any type of specific thing that you put out there and that people really enjoyed, but also maybe had like a very special meaning to you, like when you wrote that song, or anything that you've pretty much done in the music industry that really has a special meaning to you and that really has kind of that emotional impact within it?
Yeah, I mean, I try to connect emotion to everything that I do within my music. So one really cool thing I'd say is the album title, Never Say Never. Obviously the song itself, that track is very beautiful. It's very romantic. And I connected a lot with it. It reminds me of a song. The day I first heard it, I would cover a song from Jody Messina called Because You Love Me. And something about it reminded me of that and just how I feel when I'm singing her song. And I'm like, no, this is really pretty. Like, I think this fits me very well. It was something I immediately connected to. But as a song title, rather the album title, Never Say Never to me was kind of one of them cliche statements that when I was sitting in the studio, meeting the guys for the first time, having our meeting, I kind of looked back and thought, hey, you know what? Like I felt that nudge, like this is it. This is your shot. If you want to do anything, you have to move forward with this opportunity. You have to put the time in, make this work somehow. And, if you don't do this and you pass up this opportunity, you might never get another one. So Never Say Never, kind of looking back, was also one of those memories that I'll always have, making that right decision.
Absolutely. And I kind of also wanted to ask you this kind of question, and a lot of people, this might have been like a kind of like a life-changing thing for them when they went through this, but it was the whole year of that pandemic. Like, did that have a certain toll to you? Did that shift your perspective on the way you were going about things? Or like, how was that whole year for you? Did it change anything for you? How was it, especially in the music industry, for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, being a new artist, just trying to put stuff out there and get people to know who Ashley Puckett even is. We dropped the album on Valentine's Day of 2020, which was right before, it was a month before everything shut down. I just remember thinking this couldn't have been done at a worse time. I didn't know what to do. And,
Yeah.
We just put all this time and effort into, pouring our hearts into a project that I didn't know when I'd be able to share. And we still tried to do some marketing, but that's when everyone was doing like online concerts. And so people were primarily online. So our focus just became, how much content can we put out there, and I had to do some learning too. I love Facebook. I'm on Facebook all the time. But I know a lot of this younger generation and stuff, they like Instagram and then Twitter. Everyone's on Twitter. I still don't understand all of them. I'm just like, can I pick one and we're good?
Yeah.
So, I had to do some learning with that too. Everything is still posted on Facebook first. But I try to even it out a little bit more. So I had to kind of shift my marketing plans. Obviously playing out shows would have been the best option for me to get my new music out there. That way people can make a connection. Hey, this song's on the radio. Where's she at? I like this song. And we weren't able to do that. So, really I'm getting my start now, as opposed to 2020. So I'm now trying to go out and do all those little things to promote and kind of start over. But I think the whole music industry though, even, the bigger names, Carrie Underwood and Miranda Lambert, you saw some really cool raw stuff from all of them because, you got to see a different side of who they are as a person because they
Absolutely.
were all lights and, stages. And I thought it was kind of cool because there was a new connection being formed
Mhm.
between the audience and the actual artists. So that to me was actually, in my opinion, one of the good things that came out of this happening to the music industry.
Yeah.
Nothing really else did, but I like the connection. The internet kind of made that possible to maybe feel closer than ever before to those people that you look up to, or the people that have changed your life with a song. So that was kind of special to me. As far as music itself, I mean, everything's online now anyway, so that was just going to be a given.
Hmm. And who's kind of been like your biggest inspirations? I know you kind of mentioned a few in your bio, but like who have you really looked up to that you kind of saw different things that they were doing and you kind of used them for yourself? Like who's been your biggest inspiration or your biggest motivation to continue in the music industry?
I've had quite a few. I've always looked up to Leanne Rhymes, Miranda Lambert, Leanne Womack, Carole King, Martina McBride. There's so many of them. Jennifer Nettles. You know,
Hmm.
I look at people that, yes, I like to cover some of their music, and yes, I like them as a person. They're successful, but also how they got to where they are kind of means a lot to me also because I mean, I talk about Miranda all the time because I just love her,
Yeah.
but she started so many years ago and she finally started getting her break, only a few years ago, more mainstream with people really starting to pay attention. And, she never gave up. She has that personality that, you like it or you don't. And she's that person. She is who she is and she's not going to change it. And those are the types of people that I like to follow and look up to and see how they're paving their own ways because that's who I want to be, somebody different.
Hmm. And if it wasn't, I'm going to ask two interesting questions. If it wasn't music that you were doing, what would you be doing?
That's a good question. My background has always been mainly sales and marketing and finance.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, that's a good question. I'd probably just still be doing this, just a little bit more
Mhm.
low key.
I was like,
And
just imagine a world where music was never a thing, which is kind of scary, but
yeah,
just imagine, you know?
I'm good at sales. So,
Mhm.
finance manager at a car dealership. I guess I'd be doing that for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if music didn't exist, that might be it. I
that
mean,
is crazy.
yeah.
And who's your dream person to open up to, like, to open up a concert for or anything like that? Who's like your dream person to open up?
I think right now it would also be Miranda Lambert.
Miranda Lambert. That is awesome, awesome, awesome. And so this is like not you. I kind of mentioned that you're good at marketing and sales. I kind of want to ask because a lot of artists when they go into releasing new music or releasing EPs, things like that, they just put them up on YouTube and then like social media and that's about it. How do you go about marketing your music and the new releases that you have? Like what's a strategy that you kind of use in really doing that?
So thankfully, I do have a manager that, Mike, thank you for, doing all that behind the scenes stuff. Um, so he does a lot of the stuff with press releases and, getting the videos out there to different people, setting up, moments like this to help me kind of do promoting. And I've been just trying to get better at, getting it everywhere with social media, creating, I guess that's where my skills come in, but creating different things to share. One thing that I had to try to get better at through the pandemic and moving forward is how do you yourself get out the same song within a 3 6 month period that you're trying to market. So yeah, we can get it on radio and get it out there, share the video, have some interviews, different things like that, but you have to keep your content in front of your audience at all times. So I had to learn a lot of different ways, putting together different video clips, small poster type things, advertisements. So I did actually learn a lot with being creative in certain programs to making different um, to marketing material, I guess. So I've been getting better at that. But that's the main thing, just trying to keep content, but in different ways to keep people intrigued. That's kind of one of the challenges.
And if there was one thing, like any piece of advice that you would give to anybody starting up in this industry, what would that one piece be? Whether it's coming from you or somebody that's in an advice piece that somebody's given you and you want to give out, what would that one thing be for anybody starting out, just brand new in this industry?
Besides not giving up, I think going in there with a head knowing that there's going to be tough times, there's going to be ups and downs. You have to keep good people by your side that are going to keep you going. It only takes one person to throw you off your game. But more importantly than that, I think it's important, something I've learned after starting to get some success, celebrate the little things. It's cool when I had my mention in Billboard magazine, and it was even just as amazing, even more when we had a #1 song. But those are things that I celebrated in the moment for. But, my bigger dreams, I've always wanted to win a Grammy. I've always wanted to sing at the Grand Ole Opry. And if those weren't the things happening, in my mind, some of the little cool things that happen along the way, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Okay. And then you move along with your life. But I learned looking back, those little things are amazing. Some artists never get those opportunities that I've already had. So it means a lot. And I think it's going to help you go a lot further if you celebrate every little thing that happens to you, because you deserve it.
And kind of that last question I wanted to ask you is, well, before I actually ask that, I kind of wanted to ask you this now that you brought up like just working with different people and stuff like that. How important do you think is collaborations? Like, would you, especially in Pittsburgh is a big place with a lot of talent. How do you see collaborating with people, or do you sometimes turn down collaborations, or how do you see about the whole working with other musicians?
I honestly just haven't had many opportunities. And when I do, I think it's really amazing to be able to work with others, share ideas, share experiences. You can learn from one another in so many different ways, and it's a lot of fun. Meeting other people that do the same thing that you do, no matter what you're doing in life. I think it's always, brings you immediately close to somebody, and you guys get to talking. But music is just something so unique that when you have other people that you meet that are in the same genre, or even other genres. I had a guy years and years ago, he wanted to do a rap song together, and I'm nothing close to rap. So I'm like, hey, you know what? This could be fun. And we never ended up following through with it, but we got pretty far, and I'm not really sure what even happened, but the project never ended up happening. But I tell you what, it was so much fun learning a whole nother style, seeing a whole nother side of myself. So I think it's really cool. I would recommend that anyone takes any opportunities like that. Especially like duets. I love doing duets. Just being able to match somebody's energy and share something with somebody else on stage. I've always loved that.
And now, what is that one thing that you wish you would have known when you first got started that you know now?
I wish I would have known how many little things it takes to get what you really want.
Yeah,
It goes back into kind of my recommendation for people to celebrate those little things. I've always been one track minded while living day by day, if that even makes sense. So I've always had this big vision of these things that I want. And I think it's very easy to work so hard and just pass through everything else going on. So it's kind of the same thing for me. I wish that, somebody would have told me, just slow down and take the ride as it is, because you're going to have a lot of fun with it, instead of just going straight for something that hasn't happened yet.
Absolutely. And I love that, celebrating the little things, and just like you said, just taking it a step at a time, not rushing anything, go at your pace. That's what I really believe in. And for everybody kind of just listening into the show right now, and anybody who's supporting the show right now, just kind of give yourself a shout out. Where can people find you? Where can they listen to your stuff? Things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I'm a huge Facebook lover. So I'm always on Facebook constantly. So you can find me, send me a friend request, and also more importantly, Ashley Puckett Music. Like my page. I'm on Instagram also as Ashley Puckett Music, and on Twitter as Ashley P. Puckett. I have the website, ashleypuckett.com. So you can find me there. And then as always, anything on Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, Apple Music, wherever you guys listen.
And what's next for you? What's next for Ashley Puckett?
So I don't want to spoil anything, but there is stuff coming your way very soon. I'm very excited about it. You know, I don't want to get into it too much, but lots of new stuff starting up. I do have a concert coming up. I'm opening for Mark Chestnut on March 11th.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That has been rescheduled so many times. I've been so excited to do that forever, it seems. I think we've had 4, 5 rescheduled dates. I'm not even sure anymore. There's been so many, just with the pandemic and some stuff he was going through. So I'm super excited that that's finally happening. That'll be at Jurgles in Warrendale, Pennsylvania. So after that, hopefully we just put some more shows together and get out there and just do what we do.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And I feel you. Just it's a process of it is what pretty much what it is. And I just love how the whole episode you had your parrot on your hand, which is pretty cool.
So he is usually really chill, and being that he's in this room where I'm sitting right now, he's not normally in here. I thought he was gonna sit here the entire interview. So he came down, and I don't think he knew where to go.
Does he ever repeat, like whenever you're like maybe like practicing singing or something like that? Does he ever just repeat what you say?
He just turned 1 a couple months ago, so he's finally starting to vocalize and start to say words, but he won't do it in front of me. He'll wait until I'm out of the room.
Yeah.
I get my phone out. I'm always trying to record him, but as soon as he knows I'm around, he'll stop talking. Yeah. So I think he's still in the perfecting stage, but I am pretty sure, because I've been singing a lot lately. I'm pretty sure he's starting to put stuff together and try to make tunes. So
hey, you never know. He might do a feature with you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty interesting. I never even seen that, like somebody do like a feature with like some type of animal or something, you know. That would be pretty interesting. You could be the first. Well, hey, Ashley, I appreciate you so much for coming on to the show. I appreciate everybody supporting and listening on the show. And if there's anything else that you want to say before we end, or anything you wanted to mention.
No, just thanks for everyone who's supported me and got me this far, and thanks for listening to everything, and thank you for having me and taking the time.
Absolutely, Ashley. Thank you so much. And just before I end, I will be making some type of like content stuff. So I'll be sending it to you through your email, to Michael as well and everything. But other than that, I mean, it was a pleasure to meet you. And, you know, I always think it's cool to connect with people from like different countries, different cities, different states, things like that through something like this, you know, and just talk about music and art and things like that. So thank you so much for being on and taking the time out of your day to do this.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. Thank you.
Awesome, Ashley. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. I'll see you.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.